Thank you so much for that update, Charlie Pellet. Do appreciate it. Carol, I don't know about you, but when I'm giving gifts these days, I kind of like to give people things they can eat or drink.
I love doing that too.
Our Bloomberg Pursuits
team.
Don't
you like to get something that you can drink or eat?
I do.
Especially eat.
Eat, like when you brought cookies last week.
That's right.
To everybody in the office who was here. That was
kind of fun.
She brought seven different types of cookies?
It was at least 7 different kinds, yeah. And I didn't even make them all.
They were so good.
Anyway.
Still thinking about those. Hey, our Bloomberg Pursuits team is out with its annual gift guide. You can hear about it on our weekend show and on our podcast. In addition to watches that cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, some nice pieces of jewelry that will set you back more than $500,000. I know you had your eye on that necklace.
I did.
It includes quite a few things you can taste. Chocolate, coffee, alcoholic jellies, and liquor.
Well, things you can taste. That is something that Mandy Naglich is her specialty. She's a writer and consultant working in the beverage and travel space. She's also the author of How to Taste, a guide to discovering flavor and savoring life. She joins us here in our Bloomberg Interactive Brokers studio. Welcome to Grace, so great to have you here. Tell us about, your certification that makes you kind of an expert when it comes to taste. You've got a book.
Yes, got a book, and I do have several certifications. I actually am a certified taster, which means I can taste all different specialty compounds, but I'm also a Cicerone, which is a certified beer taster and server.
First of all, how do you even get to do that? Like, what's the training involved to do that?
Lots of sniffing, lots of slurping, lots of memorizing things. I can literally smell different sulfur compounds when they put them in front of me in coffee and chocolate. In beer, wine, they'll spike something and I'll be like, cis-3-hexanol, that really fresh sulfur.
So do you walk into a room like our studio and you're like, oh my God, like I'm smelling...
You know, I can smell everything, but you guys smell great. Okay. So you don't have to worry too much.
But do you, is this something that anyone can do, or do you have more sensitivity than other people?
So everyone can train it. There's actually really cool studies that you can grow your olfactory bulb, which is how we understand smells, within 2 weeks of training.
Wow.
Just sniffing, really concentrating, like we're going to focus on these wines. What are you smelling, trying to remember it, and you'll change the way that you taste in 2 or 3 weeks.
Very cool.
Why should we do that? Like, what do you get out of learning how to kind of like think about smell when you're eating or drinking and so on and so forth? Why is that so important?
So think of watching a black and white movie, like that's what you're eating like right now, and then think of it in color. Think of all the depth, the way that you can relate all of your memories as you're enjoying everything that you taste. It basically makes every sensory experience more deep and more memorable, which is what we want to live life for.
Is it hard work for you, though, in the sense of like when you go out to a dinner with a friend, you're not necessarily enjoying it as much as somebody typically would because you kind of feel like you're working?
So I've been doing it for so long that I believe there's a place for every taste. So even if something is a little, not my favorite, I totally understand why it's there and I can appreciate what's going on. I think everything that we experience is just a memory we're making, and there's a place for everything.
You're like, somebody's like, this tastes so good. You're like, actually, it doesn't. And here's why. I'm going to tell you
why. Tasting is so subjective, though. It's even our genes. Our genes, certain genes.
Yeah, but come on, Mandy. There's times you're like, no, it could be much.
No, that's legit bad.
There's some genes when we get to this red wine. If you don't have the right gene, you might literally just not taste the floral notes.
I love wine. And so tell me about, all right, let's start with this first wine and kind of what we should do in terms of understanding the smell and why it's important and what you do smell when you.
So this is the Garzon Albarino from Uruguay, which is a pretty cool wine region.
Yeah.
And what we're going to do is first, you just want to smell it a little bit further away.
Okay.
Just see what you notice first. This is going to be your top notes, the most powerful notes in the wine. And then we'll get closer and give it a little swirl and smell again. Are you guys getting some fresh fruits on this? This is actually the newest vintage, the 2024 Garzon. I feel like it's so melon forward. It used to be a little bit more pear and
Are you getting melon?
Oh, I got melon.
You get that cantaloupe instead of the pear? I don't know.
Nice.
All right, so we can give it a little taste.
Okay.
I love this wine because it's not too intense. It can pair with pretty much any food. So I feel like you can show up at a party and no matter what your host is serving, you're not going to overpower their dinner. It pairs with everything, and it's, under $20, so you could bring 2 bottles, one to serve, one for them to keep later, and still have it be a really good guest.
Are you finding you do this that, because we talk a lot about this, that there are, some really expensive wines that are incredible, but more and more there are some great offerings that don't cost that much money but have the smell, like all of that is there.
Right, we're getting all this lush fruit on this, right, which is what people look for in a Sauvignon Blanc. The savvy bee girlies out there, but for the price of a good Sauvignon Blanc, you're going to be paying way more than this, under $20 price limit. And this has got all the complexity, the right intensity that you want to be paying for that white. So you're getting the flavor without the price tag, just because it's from a little bit of a different region. It's from Uruguay in South America.
Are you ever working with a customer and you're like, you do this for a winery or so on and so forth, and you're like, this is terrible?
Never say it's terrible. Okay. I will say there's 7 different ways to smell something. So, sometimes we have to get into 6 and 7 before we're really enjoying it and praising the wine. But this one, I feel like right on the front.
It's lovely.
It's so lush.
I'm not
pretty.
a white wine drinker, but this is lovely.
Yeah, and great for a
Really
party.
love
If you're a red wine drinker, though.
I am a red wine drinker. So tell me what we've got here.
So this is the Rioja from Faustino, and they are kind of the Rioja producers. This is the 2014. It just hit shelves, so we were just talking about it in the green room.
What are we smelling?
Do you get that big plum note?
Yes.
The last vintage did not have all these like black dark fruits, like that currant.
God.
And the nice thing is, if you want to pick this up and taste all those dark notes, they come with these little like wine markers right now. So you can pop it on your glass. It's on the top of the bottle. It's like a little gift. So, you're not going to sip my brown Faustino marker. So, as you're going through the night, enjoying your glass, one thing you can worry about with tasting, if someone else's bad breath was in your glass, you're not going to have to worry about that when they're marked.
I have to say with my family, large family, like we all have our little like charms that we put on our glasses to make sure like we don't mess up. Like that's my wine.
Yeah.
We have that too.
Right?
Yeah, and if we're somewhere where we don't have that, we use different colored rubber bands.
Do you really?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
perfect. And it's such a small little gift. Like, I think when you give people wine glasses, you don't know what's in their cabinet, and you can just be, like, forcing them to store something else. Like, a little extra wine charm isn't going to take up your drawer space.
So tell us again, like, what we're getting here.
Yeah, so we should be getting some, like, really dark fruits on the nose, and then, yeah, you guys just took your sip.
Sorry, I jumped the gun with the
You get, like, a little spice at the end, right? Like, it kind of ends with almost
really
a little bit
nice.
of
I like that a
black
lot.
pepper, and what will sit on your tongue after is kind of that powerful spice note and that really stewed plum.
What is this good with?
So this you'll need a little bit more of an intense food. So
Yeah.
kind of like some red meats, things like that. A
That's what I
really
was
rich
thinking.
cheese would be so nice with that because you get that nice tannin at the end. So
Nice
something
legs
like
on it too, yeah.
exactly something like a Gouda and then a sip of this after. It's going to kind of balance it out perfectly. You're not going to have too much richness on your palate.
So this is a $37 bottle of wine.
Yeah, under $40. We
Yeah.
love that.
That's great.
Yeah, exactly.
And I don't know if we said that the Garzon was $17.
Yeah, under $20.
We're not going to let you go because we're going to save, since we're getting ready soon to bring in the new year, there's a champagne we're going to check out.
Yeah, we got to celebrate.
So we're going to take a break, do some news, and come back with Mandy. Mandy Naglich. She's a writer. She's a consultant. She works in the beverage and travel space.
She's a smeller. She's a taster.
Sniffing all the time.
I just think there's got to be times you walk in somewhere and you're like, whoa.
Yeah, hello, the subway.
Is that problematic?
No, it's a symphony of scents in the subway.
Yeah,
There's so
that's
much.
one. That's one way to
Come on.
describe it. I'll think about that next time I get on one of those cars.
Her book is How to Taste, a Guide to Discovering Flavor and Savoring Life. We're going to come back. She's going to stay with us in our studio. We're continuing to watch for headlines out of D.C.
This is Bloomberg Business Week with Carol Messer and Tim Stenevec on Bloomberg Radio and Television.
It is Bloomberg Business Week. That is Carol Masser. I'm Tim Stenevec. Let's get right back to Mandy Naglich. She's a writer and consultant. She works in beverage and travel. She's also the author of How to Taste, a Guide to Discovering Flavor and Savoring Life. And we got some white wine. We got some red wine. We got a little bit of bubbly, Carol.
We have a little bit of bubbly. And listen, in just a little bit over than a week and a half or so, we're going to be celebrating 2025, the new year. And so a lot of bubbly is going to be popping out. So let's go there and tell us what we're smelling.
So first I want to say just look
And
at
what
the
this
shape of
is.
your glass too. You see how it's a little different?
Yeah.
With bubbly, we're going to have rims that tip in a little bit because the bubbles are actually forcing aroma out of the glass or out of the solution, and it's going to all collect right there. So this is our special champagne glass. Don't let
Okay.
anyone serve you in a flute.
Okay.
And-
Oh, really?
Why?
Because it doesn't collect that glass, right? So all of your aroma is just shooting out, and there's no way to
Are
get your
you
nose
serious?
in there. I'm
You know,
being
it's so funny. I was
serious.
just going through glassware at home and
Yeah.
You're like, get rid
I'm
of
like-
the flutes?
Unless you're
What's the
doing a
point?
big toast where no one wants to taste the champagne, like you have 100 people, that's what a flute is good for. But if you're trying to taste this
No.
Paul Roger,
Why do
This is what you want.
why do
You wanna
flutes
get your
even
nose
exist
Okay,
then?
so what do we? All right, so I know. All right, we're going to continue that. All right, tell us what we're smelling.
So this is Paul Roger, and unlike a lot of champagnes that have those really bright apple notes, this is like a little buttered brioche. It's a little bit sweeter, and if you taste it, it has a lot more body than a lot of champagnes.
Yeah.
It actually is 3 equal parts of 3 different grapes.
Oh my gosh.
Ooh, that's good.
So you get that structure that kind of weighs on your palate a little bit. And I think sometimes when we're sipping champagne at New Year's, it kind of zips right off your palate. It's appley and it's gone. I love that this kind of hangs around and stays on your palate for a little bit.
That's nice.
And as a gifting champagne, it comes in a beautiful gift box and it's under $55. So a lot of those gifting champagnes will be over $100. This one I think has the flavor, has the complexity, and hits you at a really nice price point.
The first bottle of this or this brand sold in 1849.
Yeah, 175 years ago.
Love that.
Sticking been around.
history there.
Yeah, exactly.
You do coffee, you do wine, you do beer.
Chocolate.
Tea. What's your favorite?
Oh, my favorite. Oh, good question. I mean, I do love bubbles, but probably my favorite is getting into like the dark spirit space. Love a little whiskey tasting, a little dark rum.
Hey, explain how your business works, like who brings you in and who you do consulting for.
Yeah, I work across restaurants, bars. I do things like private jets. We just had a private jet person on working with those companies. And basically what I'm doing is making sure every palate that walks into the door is going to have something pleasing to them. So whether you like sweet, sour, really intense, less intense, we're going to make sure the drinks menu or the dessert menu offers something for everyone. And what we don't notice is the way that we all taste is a little bit different.
Right.
So just genetically, there's certain flavors you can't taste. There's people who think everything is super bitter. So I kind of know the lay of the land, what percentage of people are going to think things are really bitter. And I make sure the restaurants know what I know as well.
I was just having this conversation this week with my wife and her parents about cilantro, because it's like this very polarizing thing to put on tacos, for example. Some people think it tastes like soap. There's a whole portion of the population. There's a whole portion of the population thinks it tastes fine. Why does stuff happen like that?
So this is totally genetics, and the more scientists dig into our genes, same thing, a third of people can't taste violets at all. They don't know they can't smell it. It smells like nothing to them.
Wow.
You can live happily your whole life without smelling violets, but when we know that, you're not going to put a violet cocktail on a menu, right?
Oh.
Same thing with these genes in cilantro. There's also bitterness. Like I said, there's 5 types of bitterness, and there's 25% of the population can't taste 3 of those types. So to them, it's just not going to be bitter.
You know, in the break, we were talking a little bit about, and we were talking so much about smell and how it impacts us. But the color of a store or restaurant or something, and even in your book, you talk about, you know, throwing your next dinner party where the thermostat should be. And I just, like,
Oh, where should it be?
what are the things that we need to think about, like when we're serving food or wine or just kind of that setting, especially something like a dining room or something where we're going to be eating and drinking a lot?
Yeah, going back to the Faustino Rioja is actually a perfect example. See how it's like so opaque and you kind of can't see through it?
Yeah.
Our brain just sees this rich color and we immediately already think, ooh, expensive, ooh, fancy. There's a lot of wines that are great that have a lighter color, but our brain just sees this rich red and thinks, sweet, I want to taste that. Red is one of those colors that we reliably can trace to being, that we crave it and that it's a little bit sweeter. So knowing all different things, you know, about how you want to serve a wine, how you want to serve a cocktail. Certain cocktails, if they're not so attractive, if they have that kind of pale color, we'll put it in an opaque glass so people can't see what it looks like and they're only getting the flavor. You don't want to let your eyes play tricks on you, you
like
know?
all these things that like kind of play.
Yeah.
At play. What?
The science around smell. You mentioned that scientists, doctors are starting to associate loss of smell with certain ailments. What's the research there?
Yeah, so the size of your olfactory bulb is actually a really great indicator of overall brain health. And scientists at the Monell Center have been researching smell loss, and they think it's the earliest sign of dementia and Parkinson's. But there's no good, consistent test for smelling. You know, you don't go into your physical and smell a lemon every single time. So a lot of people don't self-report, oh, things don't smell as strong to me. And really what scientists are starting to push for is a physical, at your physical, when you're little, you start doing a smell test, and they can trace your smell your whole life. So when that starts to drop off, you can start kind of combating or testing for any kind of brain deterioration. Also, people with larger olfactory bulbs weren't as affected by COVID, and they didn't tend to get long COVID. Those studies are still coming out, but really just focusing on taste and keeping that little part of your brain healthy seems to affect your brain as a whole.
Yeah, no, I feel like the more we learn kind of how it all works here, certainly our body. Mandy, what a treat. Thank you so much. For Tim and I, we're getting ready to head out for the holidays. We won't be around next week, although there'll be a lot going on at Bloomberg here. But what a great way to wrap up our week on this Friday. So thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
A little toast to the holidays, I think.
A little toast.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think which, should I like pull up 2 hands and
there we
toast
go.
it both?
You
A
gotta
little
drink one so
three-way.
then you can have one in each hand.
Yeah, exactly. You can toast while you're drinking.
This is something, yeah. I'm going to do a little bit of both. But first, we got to wrap up our show. Mandy Naglich, as we said, check out her book. She is a consultant, works in the beverage and travel space. Her book is How to Taste, a guide to discovering flavor and savoring life.